Welcome to Reddit Confessions.
The pixels bled together, but the truth landed clean, like a punch to the gut I didn't see coming. The email hit my work inbox at 7:12 p.m., right as I was reviewing the shear wall details for a mid-rise project off Main Street in downtown Dallas. Subject line: for your eyes only. No signature. Just one sentence and a hyperlink. Thought you should see this. I should have deleted it. I'm a civil engineer. I don't click random links. I count rebar, argue about lateral loads, and chase down subs who don't read the plans. I measure twice, cut once, and then measure again just in case. But the sender knew my name, our home address, and the private email I use only for forwarding bills, small details that didn't belong in a cold call. Someone knew me. Someone wanted me to look. So I did. A parking garage popped onto my screen. Gray concrete, low ceilings, that dull orange light from sodium bulbs, and the echo of a door clanging shut. The camera was mounted high, maybe a stairwell landing. I saw a blue-striped column labeled P3. Then she walked in. That coat, I knew it immediately. Camel color, double-breasted, cinched at the waist. The one Jessica bought last winter because it made her feel like a mayor in a Netflix show. She tucked her hair behind her ear. Twice, quick, like a reflex. I knew the move. Jessica. Then came a guy, maybe mid-20s, backpack slung like he owned the world. He moved like a college athlete who'd just discovered campaign work. Cocky, casual, careless. He looked around like a kid about to light a joint in a school bathroom. She laughed at something he said, her voice tinny through my speakers. And then she reached for him. Not an accident. Not a bump. She grabbed his jacket and kissed him like it had been building all day. The world tunneled into the glow of my phone, the HVAC hum above, and the ticking of the wall clock. Somewhere down the hallway, someone laughed at a meme. I watched my wife lean into a stranger and saw our life tilt sideways with her. I didn't feel rage. I wish I had. Rage is human. Rage is righteous. But what I felt was colder. Heavier. Like poured concrete settling into form. Ping. A text from Jessica at 7:13. Bored dinner running late. I'll be home after 9. Don't wait up. Love you. In the video, timestamp 7:07. She broke the kiss and rested her forehead against the guy's chest. He said something that made her smile, that full-face smile. The one I memorized before our wedding and hadn't seen lately because we were too busy, or just tired, or 1,000 other adult excuses. I scrubbed back and forth through the video, his hand on her hip, her wedding band catching the flicker of bad garage lighting, the same band that left a faint tan line she'd forget about after jogs until I'd set it on the kitchen island. A shadow passed in the back, someone else heading to their car. Jessica and the guy pulled apart fast, like co-workers, like strangers. The elevator doors slid closed between them, and the video froze on an empty slab of gray. End of show. My palms were dry. That surprised me. I checked the sender. A Proton mail burner. Nothing traceable. But the subject, for your eyes only, that was an inside joke from when we were dating. She'd used that label to hide dumb memes and folders on my old MacBook. Only 2 people besides her would know what that phrase meant. My sister Emily, who would literally rather chew glass than get involved in this, and Jessica. Whoever sent this wanted me to feel watched. Or they wanted me to look. The office light reflected off my phone screen, splitting her face like a digital scar. I scrubbed the video again like I was walking a job site, looking at the edges for cracks and flaws that don't show up in the renders, but fail you when the storm hits. P3. Blue stripe. Her office garage had yellow. But the garage under the W Hotel? Blue. I'd been there once for a charity gala, suffocating in a rental tux while she whispered donors' names in my ear like cheat codes. The camera angle was from the north stairwell. P3 was just above the ramp that dumped you onto Elm Street. My stomach didn't drop. It just braced. The desk phone buzzed. Brandon from Structural. You still in? Need you to double-check the catwalk spans. Send it. I said calm. I'll mark it up. We talked deflection tolerances for 6 minutes. I marked up the PDF, saved it, uploaded it. My hands moved on muscle memory while my brain ran a second job with no blueprint. Then I hit play again. Jessica called at 8:02. Her name lit my screen. Our photo from last summer at Mustang Island. Her throwing a flip-flop at a seagull that tried to swipe our chips. I let it ring 3 times. Hey, I said. Steady. You still at work? Behind her, clinking forks, fake laughs, the The performative casual of donor dinners. Yeah, Main Street project. Electricians screwed the conduit path. She sighed. That building's cursed. It's like someone designed it blindfolded. A pause. You eat? Grab something from the cafeteria? I highlighted a line that didn't need it. How's dinner? Long, tedious. These guys love the sound of their own voice. The video was paused at 7:07. Her hand still on his face. You driving back? Probably Uber. I'm wiped. She smiled through the line. I'll wake you up when I get in. Love you too, I answered, because I'd said it 1,000 times and my mouth still remembered the shape of it. She hung up. Silence folded in like insulation. Who sent the email? A friend would have signed it. An enemy would have gloated. A mistake? They wouldn't have nailed the W Hotel's garage. That level of detail was surgical, intentional. It could have been political, someone trying to burn her professionally. But the way she touched his face, too gentle to be fake. The way he leaned his chin against her head like it was a habit. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This was a caught pattern. My first impulse should have been to flip a table and storm her dinner like some TikTok drama. But rage is messy. I'm not messy. You don't build quiet trust just to shatter it loud. You document. You plan. You let the other person walk into the trap thinking the floor is solid. I closed my eyes and replayed the garage. But this time, I didn't just see it. I planned it, like a project. Stakeholders. Constraints. Timeline. The version of me who counts bolts for a living took over. I shut down my station, grabbed my bag, and rode the elevator down with a kid in a UT hoodie who smelled like Axe and Red Bull. On Main Street, the air was thick and warm, the kind that fogs your glasses and leaves smudges on everything. At home, nothing had changed. My boots next to her flats. Our wedding photo on the shelf. Her laughing, fixing my crooked tie. A spider plant on the windowsill she always forgets to water but refuses to die anyway. I washed my hands. Poured a glass of water I didn't drink. Years ago, when we merged our finances, she asked me to set up a password vault. You're the vault, she said once, laughing. Trust, wrapped in a joke. I opened my laptop. The vault opened. Her name glowed on the screen, Jessica Hale. And something deep inside me whispered like a stressed cable, barely audible, but real. I could have torched it all right there. Screenshot. Confront. Burn. But fire leaves smoke. Ash. Trauma. I wanted something cleaner. Colder. My phone buzzed. 9:06. Leaving soon. Sorry it's late. Tomorrow I'll cook. Pasta? Smiley face. I typed. Sounds good. Don't worry about the time. Silence. I flipped my phone screen down on the counter and let the house fill the silence. I opened the video one last time. Watched her hand rise to his cheek like a prayer. And then I moved the cursor to a different tab. To the saved logins we both pretended were boring and safe. I hit enter. While the kiss played on loop in a silent gray square, I stepped into her inbox. He looked like a younger version of me, and that made it worse. I first saw him on Jessica's Instagram story. A quick, shaky clip from some nonprofit volunteer event. Jessica in a fitted navy dress, hair curled, holding a clipboard. Beside her was a kid in a white button-down, sleeves rolled to the elbow. Tall, lean, grinning like he owned the air between them. Matt Ellis. His name came later, when Jessica accidentally left her MacBook open while she went to grab wine from the kitchen. She was logged into Slack. His name was in the sidebar, direct messages pinned to the top. I didn't click yet, not because I was noble, but because I'd learned something already. Patience is sharper than suspicion. Instead, I asked questions the easy way. Busy week? I said over dinner that night, stabbing at the roasted Yukon Gold she'd made. She shrugged. Always. New intern started Monday, Matt. Fresh out of Georgetown. Smart, eager. A little cocky, but that's good for outreach work. I sipped my Topo Chico. Outreach. Right. She grinned. Don't start. I'm just mentoring him. God knows the next generation needs it. Mentoring. Later that night, while she showered, I opened her laptop again. This time I didn't hesitate. Their messages weren't explicit, not in the way that would get someone instantly fired, but they had that heat. Overuse of emojis. Inside jokes that only happen after too many late-night texts. A picture of a Starbucks latte he'd sent her at 10:14 p.m. with the caption, "Missing our caffeine dates already." She'd replied, "Patience, young Padawan. Scrolling further, I found my proof. A receipt in her downloads folder. One night last week, the W Hotel. 2 cocktails, a charcuterie board, and a room. I sat there in the soft blue glow of her screen, listening to the water upstairs, picturing her in that parking garage again, picturing him. It wasn't just the betrayal. It was his face. Something about his jawline, his haircut, like looking at a low-res version of myself from 8 years ago. I closed the laptop and went upstairs, smiling as she stepped out of the bathroom wrapped in a towel. "Everything okay?" she asked, rubbing her hair with the same white towel we bought at Target last spring. "Yeah," I said, "just finishing up some work." The next day at my office, I ran a background search on Matt Ellis' Georgetown nonprofit during lunch. 2 hits, one on LinkedIn, one from a campus newspaper article about student elections. The article was full of quotes about integrity and servant leadership. I recognized the type. All front, no foundation. By 3 p.m. I had his resume in my inbox, courtesy of a public board application Jessica's nonprofit posted last month. He'd exaggerated his internship timeline, fluffed his accomplishments, claimed a job at a firm that went out of business 2 years before he supposedly worked there. I stared at the PDF, a slow grin creeping across my face. Matt Ellis had just sent his background check to me. I grew up in a town where bridges defined the skyline. Steel ribs, top bolts, quiet strength you could trust. In D.C., it's reputations that span the river, and they collapse a lot faster. I stopped looking at the kiss like a marriage problem and started treating it like a project. Targets. Timeline. Load paths. At 6:40 a.m., with coffee going cold beside a stack of structural plans I didn't intend to touch, I was inside Jessica's inbox again. She kept everything. The woman color-coded her whole life like a campaign calendar. Search, grant. Hundreds of hits, but one thread sat at the top like a beacon. Avery Foundation Urban Resilience Grant. 7 figures. Multi-year. The kind of money that turned a scrappy nonprofit into a permanent fixture with a polished board and a new office Keurig no one knew how to use. I opened the deck. Title slide. Heat plus housing. Protecting the forgotten in Ward 7. Jessica's name first. Then the team list at the end. Program Director, Jessica Hale. Research Lead, Dr. L. Mindel. Community Partnerships, A. Ruiz. Pitch Team, J. Hale, L. Mindel, M. Ellis, Intern. There it was. An intern on a pitch team. Not illegal, but reckless. I clicked the calendar invite. Final rehearsal, Friday, 2 p.m. Donor preview reception afterward at the Willard. The Avery people were old money strict. Their guidelines were attached, a dense PDF written in the soothing voice of philanthropy that still managed to sound like a threat. Page 12. Zero tolerance for exploitation or abuse of power in mentorship relationships. Immediate disclosure required. Violations may disqualify applicants. I sat back and watched the line in my head draw itself. Personal mistake policy breach, grant risk, board panic, career implosion. Simple, elegant, honest, even. I downloaded the policy. Then another attachment from Jessica's HR. Intern Code of Conduct. It had the bland design of a document 12 people had edited to death. But the sentence that mattered was sharp enough to cut my fingers. Supervisors and interns may not engage in romantic or sexual relationships. Failure to disclose potential conflicts results in disciplinary action up to termination. I saved it in a folder I named P3. Concrete humor. No one would get it but me. By 7:15, I was reading Form 990's board bios, the soft power resumes of everyone who'd ever clinked a glass in their donor lounge. The board chair, Harriet Vaughn, had spent 20 years at Treasury and then reinvented herself as a philanthropic hammer. The vice chair ran a consultancy that placed interns across the city. HR outsourced their ethics hotline to one of those speak-up vendors with an owl logo. This town pretended to be complicated. It wasn't. My phone buzzed. "Emily, you're calling me first thing on a Tuesday," she said. "Either you got a promotion or someone's about to lose theirs." "You ever done employment cases for nonprofits?" I asked. She went quiet. "Who's hurt?" "No one," I said. "Yet." "Talk to me." I kept my voice flat. Hypothetically, if a director was sleeping with an intern on her team, and their org is midstream on a major restricted grant, strict anti-exploitation clauses, Pitch in a week. What's the structural integrity of that situation? The roof collapses on everyone, she said. Board will triage their reputation, not hers. Intern gets suspended, director resigns for family reasons, grant evaporates, and HR pretends they never met either of them. Even if there's no formal complaint. Doesn't matter if there's proof. And Aaron, run this through an ethics hotline, not to a person. Vendor logs are discoverable, but cleaner. Don't use your name. Don't use your IP. Don't get cute. I don't do cute. She exhaled. You okay? Define okay. That's what I thought, she said softly. I'm here if you need language. On or off record. I didn't say thank you. She didn't need it. On my lunch break, I walked past their building on 14th. The June heat sat heavy over the sidewalk. A volunteer dropped flyers on the steps and chased them, swearing. Inside the glass lobby, I saw Jessica glide across the tile with a coffee and that clipboard again. The clipboard was how she made chaos look tidy. When she stopped to talk to a young guy with a lanyard and 2 white Nikes, her shoulders shifted into the curve of someone who'd been seen and wanted. Him. He caught her wrist in a gesture so small you'd miss it if you weren't disgusting enough to spend your day hunting for microtells. I kept walking. I didn't trust myself to stand still and not walk through the door. Back at my desk, I cleaned the footage. I'm an engineer, not a hacker, but metadata is just data and data behaves. I pulled the video of the parking garage kiss into a scrubber, flattened the audio, removed the geotag, and rebuilt the timestamps so they read like a random export. I ran it through a public Wi-Fi capture I'd done an hour earlier at a cafe on M Street. I deleted the original from my desktop and hid the cleaned file in P3 with the grant policy and the intern rules, because symmetry is satisfying. At 5:03 p.m., Jessica called. Quick favor, she said in her cheerful public voice. Sure. I left my personal MacBook at the office, and I need to fix a font issue in the pitch deck. Their IT is useless. You're better. Email me the file, I said, rotating my chair to stare out at the Potomac through the office window. I'll check it. You're the best, she said, and I could hear her smile. How'd I get so lucky? I imagined her hand on Matt's shoulder when she said it. The sentence landed in the back of my throat like a joke no one would laugh at. Right place, right time, I said. While we talked, another email slid into her inbox, subject line, mentorship feedback, Matt E. It was from HR, a boilerplate survey with a few open fields asking supervisors to rate their interns' progress. She'd CC'd him. He'd reply, bright and eager. And together they'd build a paper trail that described this as professional. I opened the pitch deck. The font issue was real, a missing family for the section headers. I fixed it and sent it back, leaving no trace. I wanted to be the model spouse in the documentation, the name you couldn't attach to a motive. When she got home, she kicked her flats off at the door and dropped onto the couch like a stage actor after a second curtain call. You'll love this, she said. Harriet wants the pitch to feel more personal. Real stories, not just numbers. Personal, I repeated. That's a risk. Calculated risk, she said. Donors cry, donors give. How's your intern handling the pressure? Her eyes flicked up. Just a second. Then soft again. He's young. He's learning a lot. From you. From all of us, she said, too fast. I didn't press. She poured wine for herself and sparkling water for me and told a story about a board member's golden retriever, and I married the silence with my best nodding face. While she talked, my brain measured distances. The span from kitchen island to couch, the span from intern code to policy violation, the span from pitch rehearsal to HR inbox. Around 10, her phone buzzed. She checked it, face lit blue. Work? I said. She angled the screen away. Just logistics. He texted you. I said. I didn't mean to. It slipped out like a screw you didn't realize wasn't torqued enough. She blinked. Who? Your intern, I said lightly, adding a smile to make it sound like a husband's harmless jealousy. The one who's learning. Matt. She watched me the way you watch a dog to see if it's going to bite. Then she laughed. It sounded careful. I told you about him. You did. Mentoring, right? Right? She said, and lifted her wine. Mentoring. After she went to bed, I stood in our dark kitchen feeling my pulse in my teeth. I took out the trash just to have something to carry. Under the orange streetlight, the city breathed around me. Cabs, distant sirens, a couple arguing across the block about whose turn it was to feed a cat. I thought about how structures fail. It's rarely one blow. It's over time, force meeting force until a bolt shears through and the whole span gives up. I didn't plan to ruin her. I planned to let gravity do what it always does. The next morning, I called the number on the nonprofit's website and asked for HR. Name? The receptionist said. Anonymous, I said. A beat. I can connect you with our ethics hotline if you prefer. Prefer, I said. She read off the vendor number. I wrote it on a Post-it and then dialed from a payphone 2 blocks from my office that still existed for reasons no one understood. A recorded voice greeted me like a therapist who'd been trained by 10 lawyers. I followed the prompts, declined to give a name, and, when the beep came, began. Date of incident. Last Tuesday, 7:07 p.m. P3 garage at the W Hotel, I said calmly. Parties involved. Jessica Hale, program director. Matt Ellis, intern. Nature, violation of the intern supervisor conduct policy, zero tolerance clause in the Avery Foundation grants ethics section. Evidence, video file attached via portal, documentation of grant policy, intern code of conduct, and calendar invite listing Mr. Ellis as pitch team. Suggested action, immediate protective measures for intern and review of supervisory judgment prior to funder presentation. I kept my voice even. Boring. Boring is credibility's favorite suit. Would you like to provide contact info for follow-up? The voice asked. No, I said and hung up. At lunch, I walked the long way around the block and bought a burner phone from the bodega that smelled like gum and old coffee. In the alley behind it, I created a new Proton address and registered on the hotline's portal with a random string for a username. I uploaded the cleaned video, the policies, the deck page showing Matt on the pitch team. I typed like a paralegal with nothing to do but get the commas right. Then I waited. The first ripple came at 2:11 p.m. A calendar alert popped up on Jessica's account for a hastily scheduled team huddle. The subject line was bland. All staff policy reminder. The body was not. It quoted the exact line from the intern code I'd clipped. They were moving. Carefully, but moving. At 4:36 p.m., a new email hit her inbox from HR with the subject, private, clarification needed. I didn't open it. I needed to see if she would tell me. When she got home, there was a wire of tension in her shoulders she couldn't hide. She wrapped herself in a cardigan even though the air was heavy and hot. Long day, I asked, stirring sauce I didn't intend to eat. The whole house smelled like garlic and dread. Stupid administrative thing, she said, and her laugh cut short. We got one of those anonymous hotline reports. Some intern stuff. Every cycle someone tries to make trouble. What kind of trouble? She waved a hand. Mentorship boundaries. A reminder went out. It's nothing. I nodded slowly. Boundary reminders are good. They are, she said. Then, too quickly. I need to prep for Friday. I let the silence tighten. Then I smiled, leaning against the counter like a man with no idea the floor just shifted under his feet. You've always been good with interns, I said. The mentoring thing, you've got a gift. She looked up at me, eyes searching for what I wasn't giving her. That's what I told HR, she said. That sentence hung in the kitchen like a light bulb about to explode. I kissed her cheek goodnight like a husband who trusted his wife. Then I sat down at my desk, opened the hotline portal, and attached one final file to my report. The raw, time-stamped video of P3, untouched and ugly, the ring on her finger catching the light as she kissed him. And with her word, mentoring, still warm in the room, I hit send to HR. In this town, reputation is everything, and I was about to take theirs. Washington runs on image. Your resume is currency, your smile a contract, your LinkedIn endorsement's a type of blood type. I'd spent a decade here building bridges, actual ones. Jessica spent hers building the kind that collapsed in a single rumor. The beauty of D.C. is that rumors here don't need to be lies. By 7 a.m., I was back in her inbox, a black coffee cooling beside my keyboard. I searched board and HR until my eyes blurred, collecting names, titles, CC chains. The nonprofit structure unfolded on my screen like a truss diagram, neat lines hiding points of failure. One name caught me, Harriet Vaughn, board chair, retired Treasury official, known for no-nonsense leadership and a deep Rolodex of friends who owed her favors. The kind of woman who could end a career over brunch and never spill her mimosa. Then the prize, a grant Jessica's team was chasing, the Avery Foundation Urban Resilience Grant. 7 figures, high prestige, strict ethics clauses. One line in the application made me pause. Any violation of intern supervisor conduct policy will result in immediate disqualification. Matt Ellis was listed on the pitch team. It was almost funny. Jessica's hubris had done the work for me. By 9:30, I'd downloaded the entire application packet, her narrative write-up, the budget sheets, the glossy photos of community engagement. Every file went into my encrypted folder marked simply P3. Later that afternoon, I stepped out of my office for a site visit, which in this case meant walking past Jessica's building on 14th Street. Through the glass lobby, I saw her and Matt standing too close, laughing like the rest of the world was background noise. He touched her elbow. She didn't flinch. Inside my head, the schematic was complete. Find the weakest beam. Apply steady pressure. Let gravity do the rest. That night, over dinner, Jessica brought him up casually. Matt's really stepping up, she said between sips of Sauvignon Blanc. I think he's ready for more responsibility. Mentoring him well, then? I said. She smiled, missing the irony. Absolutely. He's a quick study. I smiled back and poured her more wine. You've always been good at spotting talent. She took the compliment like a trophy. The next morning, I composed an email to the nonprofit's HR department. No name, no IP trail, just a link to a secure Dropbox and a polite note. You may wish to review the attached footage and your intern supervisor policy before the Avery pitch. Then, without a flicker of hesitation, I hit send. By the time Jessica left for work, the countdown had begun. I knew, because 10 minutes later, HR had opened the file, and I sat there at my desk, sipping my coffee, imagining the look on her face when she got the summons. She came home smelling like whiskey and someone else's cologne. The scent hit me before she even shut the door, a cocktail of top-shelf bourbon and cheap spice, the kind that clings to clothes when you've been sitting too close to someone. She dropped her tote on the counter like it weighed nothing, kicked her heels toward the wall, and exhaled the way she does when she's playing exhausted, not actually exhausted. Long night? I asked, my tone all casual curiosity. She pulled her hair out of its clip and shook it loose. Fundraising dinner. Harriet was on a roll, so it ran late. You'd have been bored out of your mind. I stirred my pasta, pretending to listen. Where'd they hold it? Capitol Grill. She said it without hesitation. I pictured the W Hotel's valet stand, the one I'd walked past 2 hours earlier just in time to watch her and Matt leave together. She'd worn that same camel coat, but her smile was different, private. The kind you give someone when the night is only halfway over. I nodded, keeping my face smooth. Fancy. Hope you got dessert. Of course. She grinned like a woman who hadn't just lied through her teeth. You know me. Later, she fell asleep next to me with her phone loose in her hand, the screen still unlocked. I eased it away, scrolling through the last few notifications. Uber drop-off at 10:53 p.m. A text from Matt that just read made it home. Thanks again. And a camera roll with a handful of new images. The photos were tame. A charcuterie board, a blurry skyline from the W's rooftop bar, a mirror selfie where the edge of a second person's jacket sleeve was barely in frame. But I wasn't looking for porn. I was looking for patterns. I got out of bed, padded to my desk, and plugged her phone into my laptop. Her iCloud credentials were still saved from the last time she'd needed me to fix a syncing issue. The download started. Every photo, every timestamp, every hidden album. She shifted in her sleep, murmuring my name. I glanced over my shoulder, watching her silhouette under the covers, and felt the same detached calm I get when reviewing stress test results. You already know where the weak points are. You're just collecting proof for the report. By 3 a.m., her entire cloud was mirrored onto my drive. Every image tagged, GPS coordinated, and filed into my P3 directory. I shut down the computer, slid back into bed, and let her curl into me like nothing in our marriage had changed. Except everything had. Matt's past wasn't just messy, it was explosive. The thing about overconfident interns? They leave breadcrumbs everywhere. And if you follow them far enough, they lead you straight to the cliff edge. While Jessica showered the next morning, I ran his name through every database I had access to. Some legal, some less so. Georgetown student paper had a short piece about a disciplinary absence sophomore year. Vague. No details. A little deeper, I found the edges of the story in an archived campus forum thread, a bar fight that left another kid with a broken nose. The school handled it internally. Then came the gold, a PDF buried in the state's public records. Ellis, Matthew James, listed as a witness in a campus sexual misconduct investigation. He hadn't been charged, but his name on that document was the kind of thing that made HR departments sweat through their blazers. I dug further. LinkedIn claimed he'd interned at a policy think tank in 2021. That think tank had folded in 2019. I sat back in my chair, scrolling through it all again, feeling the clean, cold satisfaction of a bridge inspector finding rot behind the paint. By noon, I'd assembled a neat packet. The parking garage video. The Avery Grant's zero-tolerance clause. Matt's padded resume. The public record of his disciplinary mess. All of it carefully labeled, cross-referenced, and zipped into a single file. The question wasn't if I'd use it. It was when. 3 days from now, Jessica's board was holding a closed meeting to finalize their pitch for Avery. The same meeting where Harriet Vaughn would decide whether Matt got a seat at the donors' table. Timing is everything in engineering. You don't just tear out a load-bearing beam. You wait until the weight is exactly where you want it, so when it fails, the whole structure comes down in one satisfying motion. That afternoon, Jessica called me from the office, her voice bright. Harriet loved our updated deck. Matt's officially on the team for the pitch. I smiled at my monitor. That's great news. It was, for me. She bragged about her team like they were family, so I called her brother. It was a Thursday afternoon when I dialed his number. I'd met Daniel twice in our marriage, both times at obligatory holiday gatherings. He'd been polite, reserved, and obviously uncomfortable in Jessica's orbit. She rarely mentioned him, except to say he'd taken a different path and didn't get her world. When he answered, his voice was wary. "Aaron, everything okay?" "Yeah, I lied. Just had a quick question about Jessica. Off the record." He chuckled without humor. "That's new. We don't usually do family Q&A. "I know," I said, leaning back in my chair. "But I've been hearing a lot about this intern she's mentoring. Matt Ellis. Ever heard of him?" A pause. "Oh God. Not again." That stopped me. "Again?" Daniel sighed, like someone who'd been waiting for an excuse to talk. "She's got a pattern. When she was at the state nonprofit in Richmond, there was a kid, fresh out of grad school. Same story. She mentored him. He stuck around for about 6 months. Then, let's just say it ended ugly. My pulse slowed in that way it does when puzzle pieces click into place. And before that, there was another one, at her first job in D.C. I thought she'd grown out of it. Guess not. I kept my voice level. "Why didn't you say anything?" "Your family now," he said. "Didn't seem like my business. Plus, Jessica, she knows how to make people regret crossing her. I try to stay out of the blast radius." Blast radius. Fitting. We spoke for another 5 minutes, enough for me to plant the seeds of curiosity without showing my hand. When I hung up, I stared at the wall, hearing Daniel's words echo. Not the first, just the dumbest. That night, Jessica came home buzzing about a killer rehearsal for the Avery pitch. She poured wine, told me how Matt really nailed his section, how Harriet was thrilled with the energy. I just smiled and nodded, filing away every detail. Because now I wasn't just taking down an affair. I was dismantling a habit. I sat in the back row while they pitched the future, and I held its funeral in my hand. The donor suite at the Willard was all glass and marble, chilled air humming through vents that probably cost more than my first car. Rows of chairs faced a podium flanked by screens. On one of them, Jessica's face smiled in the opening slide, her name in bold under the title. Heat Plus Housing, Protecting the Forgotten in Ward 7. She wore her navy dress, the one that always seemed to photograph well under stage lights. Matt stood to her right, hair perfectly messy, his lanyard swinging like a medal. If you didn't know, you'd think they were just colleagues, partners in a good cause. But I knew. The presentation started. Jessica spoke first, polished, warm, a perfect balance of data and storytelling. Then Matt took over, delivering his section like a man who thought the room was already his. The donors nodded. Some even smiled. I glanced at the small flash drive in my pocket. On it, the parking garage video, Matt's padded resume, the intern supervisor policy, the Avery Grant's zero-tolerance clause. A neat, lethal package. They wrapped up to polite applause. Harriet Vaughn stepped forward, thanking them, inviting donors to the reception in the next room. That was my cue. I stood, moved to the back where the catering staff was clearing empty glasses, and quietly slid the flash drive into a plain white envelope. I'd already printed labels. Confidential, HR/compliance. Then, one by one, I placed them into the hands of key donors, murmuring, "You'll want to see this before finalizing anything." No drama, no speeches, just a quiet drop into the bloodstream of the organization. By the time I left, Jessica was deep in conversation with a man in a tailored gray suit, smiling like her future was already secured. 48 hours later, 3 major donors pulled their commitments. That night, she came home in tears, dropping her bag on the floor. "They're backing out," she said, her voice breaking. They didn't even give a reason. I put a hand on her shoulder. "How'd the pitch go?" They called her in at 9 o'clock. By 9:17, she was texting me like nothing was wrong. I watched her messages come in while I sipped my coffee at my desk. Morning meeting ran long. Might be late for dinner. Don't wait up if I get stuck. It was almost sweet, how normal she wanted things to look. The truth was less sweet. At 8:52 a.m., she'd been summoned to the 5th floor, HR's territory, for a compliance review. By 9:10, Matt had been called up too. By 9:15, he was back at his desk, pale, avoiding eye contact with anyone. I didn't need a mole inside to know the script. HR never says investigation in the first meeting. They say clarification, fact-finding, informal conversation. They don't bring in lawyers until the second round. But the clock was ticking. At 11:42, Matt's badge access was suspended. He walked out carrying a box that was too light to be his real belongings. The kind of box you pack in a hurry because you think you'll be back in a week. He wouldn't. Jessica, though, was still in play. She had seniority, a donor network, and a gift for talking herself out of corners. She'd think she could talk her way out of this one too. That night, she was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables with too much force. "Can you believe they suspended him?" she said. "Total overreaction. It's political, I swear. Someone's trying to sabotage us before the grant decision." I kept my tone curious. Why would anyone do that? She hesitated, then shook her head. "Jealousy. Harriet's been looking for a reason to cut me down. She probably hates that I've been mentoring him." Mentoring. The word was almost funny now. While she ranted about office politics, her laptop sat open on the counter. She was too distracted to notice when I slid it toward me. "Glitching again?" I asked, already opening the admin console. "Yeah. Freezes every time I try to upload files. Can you fix it?" "Sure." I smiled at the irony. The glitch wasn't a glitch at all. It was a small piece of code I'd installed weeks ago, just waiting for me to pull the trigger. I ran the program. It scrubbed metadata, broke links to certain synced folders, and quietly made copies of everything in her documents directory before sending them to my private drive. "Should be fine now," I said, sliding the laptop back. "Thanks, babe," she said, not knowing the fix had just locked her digital history in my hands forever. In Washington, scandal isn't a secret, it's currency. You don't burn it all at once. You trade it, spend it slowly, make sure every drip lands where it does the most damage. I'd been holding onto my ace, the raw garage footage, waiting for the moment the walls started closing in. Now they were. The HR clarification had turned into an ongoing review. Matt was out on administrative leave. Jessica was still in her chair, but the board's smiles were getting tighter, and Harriet had stopped seeing her on donor updates. Perfect conditions for a leak. I uploaded the video, untouched, timestamp intact, ring glinting on her finger, to a burner account, and sent it to a mid-tier political blog. Not one of the big names. You don't start a fire with a bonfire. You start it with a match in the right pile of dry leaves. The blog ran it the next morning under a headline just vague enough to keep their lawyers comfortable. Ethics questions shadow local nonprofits' high-stakes grant pitch. No names in the title, but the still frame of Jessica and Matt was unmistakable to anyone who knew them. By noon, it had been reposted to a D.C. gossip forum, where the commenters did the work of connecting the dots. I didn't need to watch the ripple. I could hear it in her footsteps when she came home, the fast, uneven rhythm of someone holding themselves together with fraying thread. She tried to spin it over dinner. "It's ridiculous," she said, stabbing at her salad. A source says I'm under investigation. Total smear campaign. Do they know who the source is? I asked. Anonymous, she said, disgust curling her lip. Coward. I shrugged, kept my face neutral. At least it's not a national outlet. She gave me a look that said she wasn't sure if I was comforting her or mocking her. I didn't clarify. By the next morning, the Avery Foundation had sent a request for status update to the board. That's donor code for tell us why we shouldn't walk away. At 2:47 p.m., an email hit her inbox. I saw it appear in the mirrored account on my phone before she did. Subject, immediate organizational update. Body, effective immediately. Jessica Hale is no longer employed at Ward 7 Works. We thank her for her service and wish her well in future endeavors. I almost laughed at how bloodless it was. When she got home, she didn't say a word. Just dropped her bag, poured a glass of wine, and stared out the window like she was waiting for the city to apologize. The house was quiet, too quiet for someone who just lost everything. Jessica sat at the kitchen table in one of my old t-shirts, staring at her phone like it might suddenly reverse time. The blinds were drawn, the room dim except for the cold light of the screen on her face. They're making it sound like I did something criminal, she said finally, her voice low but sharp. I built that organization. Harriet couldn't run a lemonade stand without me. I poured myself coffee and leaned against the counter. Have you talked to her? She scoffed. She won't take my calls. She sent the statement to the press before I even knew I was out. There it was, the first hint that she'd lost control of the story. In D.C., once the narrative slips from your hands, it's over. She tried to reframe it over the next few days. Told friends it was a political hit job, a board coup, even hinted it might be gender discrimination. I let her spin. Every lie she told publicly made her look more desperate when the truth inevitably surfaced. Matt stayed silent for 3 days. Then he broke. His name popped up in her notifications at 11:14 p.m. A short text. This is bad. I think someone set us up. She stared at the screen, then at me, like she was trying to gauge whether I'd seen it. What? I asked, voice even. Nothing, she said too quickly, locking the phone. Just someone checking in. She didn't realize I already had a copy of the message sitting in my mirrored inbox. Someone set us up. He was right, just not in the way he thought. She finally asked, did you know? And I didn't even blink. It was a Tuesday night, a week after her firing. We were eating takeout in silence, the kind of silence that used to mean we were both tired but comfortable. Now it was the kind that weighed on the air, every word a risk. She set down her fork, eyes fixed on me. Aaron, did you know about me and Matt before all this? I let the question hang just long enough to make her second guess asking it. Then I shook my head. No. Why would I? Her gaze searched my face for cracks. Because you're you. You notice things. You read people. And you've been different. I took a slow sip of water. Different how? Colder, she said. Like you're waiting for something to happen. I almost laughed. Jessica, you've been all over the blogs for 2 weeks. Your name's in every D.C. group chat. Of course I'm different. I'm trying to process the fact that my wife is suddenly unemployed. Her jaw tightened. You think I did this to myself? I leaned back in my chair. I think you're tired, paranoid, and looking for someone to blame who isn't you. The words landed like a slap, and I saw the flicker of uncertainty behind her anger. She wanted me to break, to confess something, but instead, I gave her nothing. That night, she stayed up late, pacing the house, checking her phone, scrolling through her laptop. I knew she was looking for signs, an email, a file, anything that proved I was involved. But she wouldn't find them. I'd made sure of that. When she finally came to bed, she lay stiff on her side, her back to me. You should get some rest, I said into the dark. You look exhausted. He wanted revenge, but brought a knife to a chess match. Matt had been quiet for weeks, which made me think maybe he'd cut his losses and slink away. I should have known better. Cocky kids don't quit when they think they've been wronged. They try to make a comeback. The email came on a Thursday morning. Subject line: formal complaint. It was addressed to Jessica, the nonprofit's board, and, strangely, CC'd to a few local reporters. He accused the organization of retaliating against him for exposing unethical leadership and claimed Jessica had been a victim of institutional sexism. It was a half-baked mess of buzzwords and self-pity. But it was just dangerous enough that if someone didn't crush it immediately, it could get traction. He didn't know I was already 3 moves ahead. By noon, I'd forwarded his email to Emily. My sister didn't ask questions. She just called me, her voice cool and surgical. "You want this buried or burned?" "Buried," I said. "But make sure he knows someone's holding the shovel." Emily went to work. She drafted a preemptive statement for the board, complete with documented timelines, donor withdrawals, and screenshots of messages that made Matt look like the opportunistic idiot he was. The kind of packet that shuts down a reporter before they even pitch the story to their editor. 2 days later, Matt got served with a cease and desist for defamation and a notice that his own employment file, padded resume and all, was now part of a pending legal review. Jessica got a subpoena. She tried to play it off at first, waving the envelope like it was an annoyance, but I saw the tremor in her hands. "What is this?" she asked. "Looks like you're a witness now," I said. "Better be careful what you say." I didn't burn her life down. I just gave her the match. Once Matt's complaint was dead in the water, the whispers turned into headlines. Not the kind you could sue over, the kind that clung like smoke. D.C. is small, and in the nonprofit world, smaller still. Every brunch, every donor lunch, every happy hour became an echo chamber of her name, followed by a pause. First, she lost the Avery grant. Then another board quietly reconsidered her application for an executive director role. By the third rejection, even she stopped pretending it was coincidence. Matt vanished from the city. No goodbye post, no grand statement, just gone. My guess? He realized no one was hiring a 22-year-old with a scandal attached to his name and a resume held together with duct tape. Jessica, though, stayed. She tried to network her way back into relevance. She called old contacts, sent just checking in emails, even showed up at a gala as someone's +1. I watched from the edges, in photos, in social posts, as people smiled politely and then turned away. One night, she sat at the kitchen table, wine glass in hand, staring at the dark window like it might give her an answer. "Do you think people can come back from something like this?" she asked. "Sure," I said, "if they didn't cause it." She flinched, then tried to cover it with a laugh. "So you think I did?" I didn't answer. I just let the silence fill in the truth for me. She took a sip, set the glass down, and said, "Would you ever forgive me?" I looked at her for a long time. "Do you even know what that word means?" The last lie she told was to herself. It was late, the kind of hour where the city outside goes quiet, and even the streetlights seemed tired. Jessica sat on the edge of the couch, knees pulled up, eyes glassy from too much wine and not enough sleep. "I need to say it," she murmured, almost to herself. "I can't keep pretending." I stayed in the armchair, letting her find her way to the point. "It wasn't just Matt," she said finally, her voice breaking in a way that sounded rehearsed. "There were others. Before him. I don't even know why. I told myself it was harmless, that it didn't change how I felt about you." She laughed, bitter, ugly. I told myself I was in control, but I wasn't. I just kept pushing the line. I didn't move. Didn't offer comfort. I'd spent too long rehearsing this moment in my head to waste it on sympathy. She looked at me like she expected something. Anger, tears, a fight. Instead, I gave her the calm truth. "I'm not angry anymore," I said. "Just done." Her face felt like she hadn't considered that was worse. "You can't just," she started. "I can," I said, standing. "And I am." I walked to the door, grabbing my keys, feeling the weight of the last year lift with every step. "I hope you find peace," I told her without looking back. And then I left. Some people heal, others rebuild. I didn't heal. I stripped my life down to the studs and started over. The divorce filing went in quietly, through Emily's office. No messy court fights, no dramatic confrontations. Jessica didn't contest. Maybe she knew she'd lose more than she could afford if she tried. 2 months later, I was gone from the house we'd shared. I left behind the furniture, the wedding china, the framed vacation photos. She could have them. They belonged to a version of me that no longer existed. I moved into a loft across the river, a clean space with no history in its walls. My mornings became simple: coffee, a run along the waterfront, work at the engineering firm. Evenings were mine again. Quiet, steady. The story of Jessica's fall made its way through the city, but it burned out faster than she thought it would. Scandals always do. By the end of the year, her name was an occasional punchline in certain donor circles, a cautionary tale told over expensive wine. I never corrected the record. No one ever connected it to me. That was the point. By the time winter came, I had a new project lead at work, a new rhythm to my life, and the kind of peace you can only get after you've walked away from a fire you set yourself. Then, 6 months later, it happened. I was at my desk, finishing a report, when the notification popped up on my phone. Anonymous email, subject, thought you should see this. Inside was a video. Different parking garage. Different couple. Same grainy footage, same kiss. The woman's name in the body of the email wasn't Jessica. It was someone I knew.